Greetings. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. And for those of you new to Celebration, this is a program which tries to look at people and their cultures and try to get a better understanding to see what makes the culture or people tick. And for this reason, we will look at the good, we'll look at the bad, and even the indifferent or mundane. We hope to uncover some new information that will round out the picture. We understand that some of the material will be old turf for at least many of you, but we are certainly willing to go to little known sources to try to get a real sharp focus, possible, on aspects that are not talked about too often. We have proposed in our original episode that you join in a kind of a Marco Polo-esque adventure as we trek toward knowledge, and I think we'll find some in the long run. Some people will be offended, of course. That's always true. In fact, law and truth is employed, and we regret that some people will feel their toes somewhat pinched, stepped upon. But the greater good demands that fact, law, and truth be brought into light. Now, our particular series episode, program here is on the topic of Jews and their culture. As such, we thought that we would first of all try to come to an understanding of the word Jew, and as such, we have looked at that. The term itself is relatively new, English coinage about 300 years ago, and the term Jew first appeared in the Old Testament in Kings. It can be said emphatically that Abraham was not a Jew. Abraham was a Hebrew. Abraham was a Shemite, but he could not be a Jew, nor Isaac, and nor Jacob. Jacob, of course, had his name changed to Israel and was the father of the 12 tribes, one of which was Judah. And it is that particular line that became familiar under the house of Judah, which also included the tribe of Benjamin and Levites, and the other tribes fell into the house of Israel, Ephraim, and etc. Now, we continued to look a little bit at the Judah-Shelah line, the Jews of Elath, taking that toward Jerusalem. We looked at Esau, the Edomites, and we took that also toward Jerusalem, Judea, and so forth. We mentioned what could be and what could not be, noting that the word Jew could not be used properly for any other house of Israel who had long ago been taken off into Assyrian captivity, as well as 200,000 plus of the house of Judah. And it is our belief that these Israelites went forth to Western Europe, the Isles of the West, and from there to the United States, Canada, and so forth. Now, we find also some evidence of sensitivity on the issue of the relatively small number of people who might be called Judahites amongst those using the term Jews. And we feel that this uneasiness in terms of numbers is one of the reasons that in the books of the Talmudist, of those known as Jews, one finds these exaggerated claims in certain portions, certain spots, where they speak of holocausts of something like 64 billion Jews. Now, I believe that this is a kind of a far-fetched creative effort to try to create Jews as numerous as the sands on a beach per God's comment to Abraham and Isaac. It does seem altogether far-fetched. But when you have a population which is small and a prophecy, a covenant which extends to great numbers, some effort must be made to show why there is this diminution. So I think we have these fables appear. So it's an interesting area, and we now propose to bring in still another area of this group that came to be known as Jews. So let's do that now. Popular ignorance of the real basis of political Zionism is beyond calculation. Vaguely, most Christian Americans have the idea that the Jews claimed Palestine because it was the promised land in which they lived for a period of a few centuries that ended 2,000 years ago. And the thought of a people returning to its homeland seems emotionally satisfying and good. But here are the facts most Americans do not know. Political Zionism is almost exclusively a movement by the Jews of Europe. But these Eastern European Jews have neither a racial nor historic connection with Palestine. Their ancestors were not inhabitants of the Promised Land. They are the direct descendants of the people of the Khazar kingdom, which existed until the 12th century. The Khazars were a non-Semitic Turko-Finn Mongolian tribal people who, about the 1st century AD, immigrated from Middle Asia to Eastern Europe. There they created one of the largest kingdoms of their time. At its greatest extent, it covered an area of about 800,000 square miles. About the 8th century AD, the king of the Khazars adopted Judaism as a state religion, and a majority of the inhabitants joined him in the new allegiance. Before that date, there was no such thing as a Khazar who was a Jew. Neither then nor since was there such a thing as a Khazar whose ancestors had come from the Holy Land. The Semitic people who established Judaism in Palestine many centuries before the Khazars became converts to the Hebrew faith did mostly immigrate from Palestine, but none of them immigrated to the Khazar kingdom far to the north. In view of this fact, what becomes of the cry for repatriation to the homeland? These Eastern European, Yiddish-speaking Jews have no historical or racial connection with Palestine, or for that matter, with the other Jews who existed in other countries for hundreds of years prior to the Khazar conversion. This is a citation from Who Are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are They Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, pages 17 and 18, citing the Armageddon confrontation by Howard B. Rand, LLB, Destiny Publishers, Merrimack, Massachusetts, in which he quoted Benjamin L. Friedman, himself a Jew. This interesting connection here is not to be supposed as some sort of reemergence of the the house of Israel and the 200,000 of the house of Judah taken by the Assyrian captivity. In fact, there has been some correspondence apparently between a very important Jewish official in Islamic Spain around the 1200, something of this sort, with the king at that time, a King Joseph, who describes his people as being not Semitic but Japhetic in origin, and rather proud of his heritage and his new position as he believed the bearer of the scepter of David. So there you have it. But for just a little bit more confirmation on this particular subject, in the year 740, the Khazars were officially converted to Judaism. A century later, they were cursed by the incoming Slavic-speaking people and were scattered over Central Europe, where they were known as Jews. It is from this grouping that most German and Polish Jews are descended, and they likewise make up a considerable part of that population now found in America. The term Ashkenazim is applied to this round-headed and dark-complexioned division. Now this is a citation from Who Are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are They Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, pages 18 and 19, citing the American People's Encyclopedia for 1954 at 15-292. Now I might add, since there has been a kind of uniform depiction of the East Europeans and Russian, Slavs, and so forth as being virulently anti-Semitic and so forth in America and the Western press, particularly in America, I think it might be well to note that the Khazar people had managed, they were sort of a herding tribe, living in tents, great horsemen and so forth. I think, at least originally, quite fierce after the fashion of all those tribal groups running across the steppes on their horses and so forth. Well, they had gotten the upper hand on the Slavic people who had tended to be farmers, and had brought them into a kind of a tribute position. And so that would, of course, mean taxes. Basically, when you're talking tribute, we're talking taxes. So it's only natural for the people who are being forced to pay up part of their profits, at least in the sense of increase of their farm goods and so forth, what little coinage and whatnot they may have obtained, to the king of a foreign people, an alien people. Well, it could be a bitter pill, and I think that this kind of natural animosity grew up, which has been interpreted in the United States in the news and so forth as anti-Semitic in a kind of vicious, ignorant, mindless kind of way, when in point of fact I think it had an economic basis, which is thoroughly mundane and can be found almost anywhere with the same kind of situation obtained even in sub-Saharan Africa, where you have the Watusi, the Tutsi, and the Hutu, where the Hutu were subservient, forced in subservient positions. But anyway, let's get back for another citation, shall we? Khazar, the name of a people and an empire powerful from about AD 600 to 1000 in the area of the Caspian Sea. They were sometimes called White Huns or Turks from the east. The Jewish people became very influential and in AD 740 succeeded in converting the court to Judaism. A century later, the incoming Slavic-speaking tribesmen broke the power of the Khazars and scattered their people over Central Europe, where they were known as Jews. It is important to note that a large portion of the Central European Jews are descended from the converted Khazars. Earlier accounts describe these people as having fair skin but black hair. The amount of mixture caused by the frequent invasion of their land, first by the Persians, later by the Huns and Turks, must have been considerable. However, the dominant type is rather short, round-headed, dark-complexioned grouping considered by anthropologists as being a variant division of the Alpine race. This is a citation from Who Are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are They Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, page 19, citing the American People's Encyclopedia for 1952, Khazars at 11-896-7. Well, people, let me just say that this question of white Hun should be dealt with some care. I myself have read sources which state that the Huns, or this particular group, where maybe utilized a sort of Egyptian-esque way of dealing with their aristocracy and common people, where the aristocratic, or the lords, as it were depicted as fair, and thus gave the name White Hun, and the darker mass of common people called Black Huns, or regular Huns, whatever. But at any rate, it may not at all reference a racial division here. The Khazars were not Semites. They were an Asiatic Mongoloid nation. They are classified by modern anthropologists as Turko-Finns racially. This is a citation from Who Are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are They Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, page 19, citing Dr. Benjamin Friedman, Facts of Facts, page 41. Well, I think, again, great care has to be employed in talking about race in conjunction with this group of people. We take them to be basically Japhetic, according to what that term generally means, and using the word Turko-Finn or something of this sort. They're basically talking about language groups rather than racial groups. Let me give you a citation that's kind of interesting on this point. One of the oldest of racial old wives' tales attributes the origin of the Ashkenazim, Eastern European Jews, to the conversion of the Turkish tribe of Khazars to Judaism in the 8th century. Intrigued by the legend, A.E. Morant, who specializes in blood group analysis, tested thousands of Jews in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, and came to the conclusion that a strain of genetic homogeneity does run through Jewry, but not a Khazar strain. Even in Russia, Morant found very little evidence of Khazar additions to the Jewish or non-Jewish gene pool. This is a citation from Wilmot Robertson, The Dispossessed Majority, page 31, citing A.E. Morant, The Genetics of Jews, 1978. This is an interesting alternate position taken. I'm sure that Mr. Robertson believes that this is a scientific clincher. However, the question remains basically, did this particular fellow, A.E. Morant, really know what he was looking for? Because this affiliation is a language group and not a racial group, it seems that he might be looking where there was nothing to be found. But at any rate, it is an interesting, shall we say, demur. We do, however, find both from scholarly sources from this Dr. Wilson and his unofficial offspring, Arthur Kessler, and their followers in that line, a rather scholarly bit of evidence to the contrary. They do cite Islamic travelers, officials, and whatnot, and they do have period source material to make a judgment. We also know that royal members of the Khazar family intermarried with the Byzantine royalty in Byzantium, close by, that great power at that time, the remnant of the Holy Roman Empire, or the Roman Empire, I should say. And we do feel that regardless of this test by Mr. Morant, that the evidence is pretty overwhelming on the side that this conversion did occur, and that a great bulk of the East European Jewry, what is known as Ashkenazim, in fact did derive from this particular group. However, we do not see Jewry as being basically a strongly bloodline conscious people. They have been a proselytizing people off and on with great vigor. And indeed, this people, if there is a people on earth who deserve the title, should be considered the melting pot people. Now, to this effect, let me give you a citation. What A.E. Morant and two associates did find was that Jews as a whole exhibit an admixture of 5 to 10% Negro genes, which they may have picked up in their stay in ancient Egypt and through subsequent miscegenation with North African peoples. This is a citation from Wilmot Robertson, The Dispossessed Majority, page 31, citing A.E. Morant, The Genetics of Jews, 1978. There's still another citation along this same vein. Another argument for a common Jewish biology is a number of specifically Jewish genetic diseases, Tay-Sachs, Niemann-Pick, and Gaucher's. This is a citation once again from Wilmot Robertson's The Dispossessed Majority, page 31. People, in continuation of this particular thought, let me provide you with some illustrations of Jews from around the world. We do have representatives of Jewry from China. In fact, China is said to be the only country in the world, the only people in the world who are able to assimilate the Jews. But let's put this picture on the board, as well as some other pictures which illustrate this from India, the Koshin Jews, from the New World, where we have Indian Jews, from a village in Italy, and so forth, so that you can get the idea that this is a people which, as I say, probably more than any other people on earth deserve the title melting pot people. And perhaps that's why the Jewish writer Zangwill, I believe is his name, coined the expression for the United States of America as a melting pot country. Perhaps he was envisioning from self-meditation. But at any rate, let's put those pictures series through. Well, now, continuing with our look at this connection, this Khazar connection, consider this. Khazars, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of the history of the Jews of Russia. Historical evidence points to the region of the Urals as the home of the Khazars. This is a citation from Who is Esau Edom by Mr. Charles A. White, page 8, citing the Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 5, 1904, page 41. At least a portion of the number of Jews to be found in Europe were of Babylonian Jewish origin, from Sur and so forth. And undoubtedly there's some truth to this, because we do know that when the Khazar king, known as a Kagan, did convert, he did bring up from Babylonia thousands of rabbis, scholars, scribes, and so forth, and their families, I suppose, to instruct the people, to set up synagogues and theological types of schools and rabbinic schools and so forth.